is trapped in a robotic defensive game that forbids expression. In the Sunday People face off, simmering Conte plotting to reignite his feud with Jose at Old Trafford. Antonio Conte still wants a full-on clash with Jose Mourinho later this month, and Chelsea bosses won't try to stop him. Sunday Times, Souness: Kane is ready for Madrid move, but Ali is not. Graham Souness believes that Ali has not developed to the same extent as Harry Kane and is not ready for a move to one of Europe's biggest clubs. Of course, the page dominated by Johnny Sexton's winning kick in Paris as well. In the Sunday World, possibly the headline of the day, Sext bomb. Johnny Sexton delivers a moment of buzzer-beating genius as a wave of Celtic euphoria engulfed Paris. Faugheen is outpaced as well. Faugheen unable to turn back the clock as the machine's bid to make a major Cheltenham statement ended in a gallant failure even. On the Irish Mail on Sunday, drop of magic. Sexton's stunning kick in added time gives Ireland a winning start in their championship bid. And in Kevin Kilban's column today as well, Firmino is the best striker in England, and he needs to be. Kev thinks that Roberto Firmino's overall game, work rate, whole of play and an ability to pick a pass makes him the standout player in his position, not Harry Kane, who he goes up against this afternoon. We'll ask him about that a little bit later on. And in the Star on Sunday today as well, it's all kicking off. Johnny Sexton swamp Irish players as his match-winning drop goal goes over the posts and killing time. A double blow for the Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers, as his injuries mount up. That, and of course, in the wake of their surprising defeat to Kilmarnock. But let's cast our minds back to that Jonathan Sexton kick. 2 minutes and 38 seconds into injury time in Paris yesterday.
You try and just focus on your next job. That's like, and you hear a lot of sports people say that, your next job, how are we going to get the 22 back? And then, in fairness to Johnny, he had the confidence and, to go for that cross kick to Earlsey, and then where do we go from there? It's just next job. What's the next phase, and what do you need to get right? And I thought it was really clinical by us, and on a dry day, sunny day, it's a lot easier to do that. I think with the conditions, a lot of credit has to go to our forwards for, control of the ball and in greasy conditions with the line speed the French were bringing. I thought it was really, really impressive, and you're just kind of in a little bit of a flow situation, and you've good chat from lads around you. We know what to do in that situation, and I thought we executed it really well. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes the drop goal goes wider. Someone might spill it. It needed a lot of. Obviously Johnny will get the plaudits, and rightly so. But I think the forwards to control the ball in all those phases and get a little bit of momentum every time. They deserve massive credit.
There you go. That's Conor Murray speaking after that 15-13 victory yesterday for Ireland in Paris. An incredible victory, Bernard, but one, I have to say, that we probably shouldn't have found ourselves in the position of needing that drop goal.
Yeah, definitely not. I think the rain obviously came, and that hampered our ability to play with wit, and France are a physically very powerful side, and because we played really direct, really close to the ruck, it became unbelievably attritional, and I think Ireland probably felt that the French fitness would fade more than it did. I think France definitely, they were out on their feet at the end, but so were we. We were a little bit punch drunk because we obviously had a huge amount of possession. The French made a huge amount of tackles, but unfortunately for us, we didn't kill the game off. When Johnny missed that penalty just before the 70th minute, if we had went 9 points up there, we would have closed the game out comfortably. And then when you don't close the game out properly, you leave it up to marginal decisions. I think Nigel Owens in hindsight made a mistake on that Rob Kearney collision in the air. That would have given us a chance to clear our lines. He doesn't give the penalty, and suddenly French have a scrum on their own half, and a good clearance from Rob Kearney with a poor kick chase leads to us conceding 7 points and chasing the game with 5 minutes to go, which we don't want to be away from home in Paris. And I suppose we just never killed them off, and hence, because they were always in the game, they just stayed in the fight, and we had to pull something out of the bag, which I don't think we probably needed to. We just weren't as accurate as the Irish team has been previously. Maybe it's the first game, just lacking that match intensity at a higher level that we needed, and I think we'll definitely improve from it. But the big thing is that the big advantage of what happened was that now we know if we go into a situation similar, and we will in this competition, because we don't have a monopoly in terms of talent or coaching. All the teams are pretty evenly matched. Maybe Italy just a little bit behind. The reality is, for us to win games in this competition, generally we're either going to be just a little bit ahead or a little bit behind going into the last 10 minutes. And now we know that we have someone in our team who has the ability to pull it out of the bag.
Tommy, it was an incredible moment. It's one of these moments that will be a lot will depend on whether we go on to actually win something in this championship or not, but it's going to be one of those Irish moments that's etched in folklore already.
Yeah, it was those reeling in the years moment. Funny, I was in TV3 this morning and was talking to the producer Michael Brady, and actually Joe was there as well.
He slept there last
having
night.
His porridge, getting ready for another day, and I experienced this myself with you're doing live coverage in Champions League, where you've got this sort of narrative all ready to go. Game goes into injury time, and suddenly something crazy happens, and then it changes everything, and it's it's all part of the job. But as Bernard says, and we were talking about this before we came on air, the fine margin between the post-match discussion and this discussion today, and indeed over the days to come, being an absolute post-mortem about what went wrong. How could this happen again, that we turn up in the first day of the Six Nations with expectations sky high and things go wrong, and the video session, how brutal will that be, versus this moment, which is, as you say, absolutely iconic. And I was thinking of your other colleague Dave McIntyre, who in his first Six Nations commentary gig, gets they think it's all over. It is now. Moment in his first game, and it's just that's just the nature of it. But fine margins, as I say.
Yeah, that we were talking about fine margins. There was a lot in the lead that went into the position that Sexton found himself in for that kick. 41 phases was the number I think was on the board by the time the ball came to him. 2 and a bit minutes into injury time. There was 2 moments that struck me from the build up to it, and both of them were from Sexton as well. There was a pass through to Robbie Henshaw, which saw us gain more ground, I think, than we had done up until that point from one particular phase. And then, of course, there was that diagonal kick for Keith Earls, which was brilliantly gathered by Earls. And, of course, we know from his outings in Europe so far this season that he's well able to do that. But those 2 moments of ingenuity from Sexton kind of encapsulated almost as much as the kick itself at the end what that player is capable of. It almost gets lost in the head injuries and the sullen nature and the just always being there. But there's a player of great magic and great enterprise, and he was able to achieve different things on the pitch that others can't.
Listen, I remember when Johnny came into the Leinster setup, he'd been on the Irish under-20s, he got dropped from that. His career was very much at a stagnant point, and even then he believed he had the capacity to drive Leinster forward before probably any of his coaches or his players or his co-teammates did. I think that's really important. I think, and O'Gara had that as well, and innate belief in himself that the more pressure that was on them, the more clarity they had in terms of what needed to be done, and be willing to play a key role in that. As coaches, we try and give the players scenarios and we try and prepare them best we can, but the reality is, Joe Schmidt was up in his coach's box yesterday and he was helpless the last 5 minutes, and once Johnny Sexton decided to kick that off, obviously he would have predicted they would have kicked it off short. Henderson has to go catch it, but after that, it's just one handling error, one lack of discipline in terms of having the right numbers at the breakdown, because France were really going after every breakdown. But Johnny, he realised Ireland got from the 22 up to just near the 40-metre mark, and we were blocked. The French were very comfortable. We tried to run it out of our own half. We couldn't, and the only way to change it up was to go for that crossfield kick. If Johnny doesn't kick that perfectly, or Keith Earls drops it, all the hurlers on the ditch this morning are saying, why did Johnny Sexton kick the ball away? We need to keep possession. So he'd shown already there, and I'm not surprised by it, but again he showed that he had the ability to see something clearly that the rest of us maybe didn't, and then execute it. And then, ideally we win a penalty or we get closer up. But again, we got to their 40-metre line, and the French defence became comfortable, and we couldn't find a way through. And realistically, after 41 phases, someone has to make a decision what's going to happen next, and he did it, and he executed it. It's probably the longest drop goal he's got in his career. He was cramping up with 10 minutes to go. He'd had a very physical game, as he always does. Just to execute that under that level of fatigue in the 82nd minute is testament to his fitness levels, but also his mental strength, and be able to get his technique right with massive fatigue and massive pressure.
What did the older players at Leinster make of that mental strength, or that mentality that he had?
I think he annoyed us, but he annoyed certain people. He rubbed people up the wrong way.
In what way though?
Sometimes you have to earn the right to critique.
Okay.
And demand. And I remember Brian Driscoll used to always say, because our culture wasn't a winning mentality, we had brilliant players. In fairness, it all kind of happened at the same time. Michael Cheika came in and really drove the organisation to give us a better environment, but also drove us harder as well, physically, demanded more of us, made us review each other and ourselves in a much more ruthless way, more accountable. And Johnny, I remember Brian used to always say, Leinster won't win anything until people were comfortable pulling him up when he wasn't where he should be or when he made a mistake. And Johnny was the first guy I remember doing it. Brian dropped the ball at training, that Johnny passed him, and Johnny, gave him a look and a bollocking. And Brian it was a real chance for Brian to really prove he was ready for that next step. And he could have easily said, "Listen, f off. You haven't done anything in the game. Yeah. I've done everything." But of course he didn't. He didn't do that. But we all would have seen Johnny being, I suppose, ratty and demanding before he actually has done everything he's done in the game now. So now he has the right to do it, which is fine. But what I like about Johnny is that he was doing it before he had proven the right to do it. Right. He just knew this is the way we need to perform and train and practice and behave to become a winning team. So I think he's a key driver in that. And don't forget, his first big moment was coming on for Felipe Contaponi in that semi-final in Croke Park, and his first action is a kick. It's not an easy kick, and the pressure that was on him, he nailed that. He kicked the drop goal in the first Heineken Cup win in Murrayfield. He doesn't always play the perfect game, no more than anyone does, but he's always happy to take responsibility, and that's what you want. You want your 9s, 10s, your goal kickers to be people who have that moral fibre, that they're not going to die wondering.
The other, talking about post-mortems, one of the things, if that hadn't have gone over was the kick that he missed. And I think that's something, we were talking about Ronan O'Gara and how it was perfect to have Ronan talking about a decisive drop goal after the game. Who would know better? But about that mentality of having the absolute ego, or I'm not sure if it's ego, but certainly the confidence in yourself and complete belief.
Ability to back yourself.
To do that in that situation, despite what in Johnny's case would have been, 15 minutes since he'd missed a kick that would prove to be perhaps, in the papers today. What about that moment that would have put us out of sight? I mean, for someone like Johnny, is that a case of that just goes out of the brain right away and doesn't at all impact on him?
I think that's the beauty of those high level performers, that they're able to park that and don't let that affect your next 10 minutes. Review that on Monday or review it on Tuesday with your kicking coach and work out why, problem solve. But don't let it affect it. I mean, Pádraig Harrington came in to speak to us in 2009 about the Grand Slam, and he spoke about how he'd been second 22 times, and people said he was a choker, etc. And he developed, I suppose, a mental process to be able to, if he hits a bad drive, it's parked, it's gone. By the time he reaches a certain point away from the area of the driving. So Johnny is able to do that as well. Johnny would just hope he had another chance. If that chance suddenly came along, if someone had dropped the ball or there was an error in those 41 phases, Johnny has to deal with the fact that he missed that kick. Sometimes in sport you don't get another chance. All that Johnny could do then is control his accuracy of if he did get one.
So when he is conducting the orchestra like he was in those last few minutes, is he at all aware that I'm trying to, there's a degree of redemption going on here, or is he is it gone and it's just the pure moment that he's in?
Yeah, I think it's a pure moment. I think if he had got a penalty there, he'd only be human to as he's putting that ball down and trying to get himself into his kicking routine to remember the one 10 minutes ago. I think for a drop goal, it's more of an instinctive. It's more of a snap decision, and you're looking to see, is the ball ready? Where there are shooters coming from to put pressure on you? So possibly you have less time to think in a drop goal routine. But I think they can park it. I think they can live in the moment, and I think coaches, we say, win or learn. I think this week is a massive opportunity, and the Irish coaches will win and learn. So we got the game, but they'll learn a huge amount for that performance, which will hopefully help us, win a championship.
There was a face watching it struck me watching the Joe Schmidt interview on TV3 after the game that everybody wanted that moment from like in any post-match interview when you just won the game with the last kick of the match. You want that real moment of celebration, real moment of joy in Joe Schmidt's face. It struck me looking at his face that he was treating that game almost as if we had lost it, because I don't think in the majority of it, bar those 41 phases, that the Schmidt doctrine was borne out in that match. There was an incredible amount of discipline, an incredible amount of self-awareness in those last couple of minutes to try and get to that position where Johnny obviously kicked the winning points. But up until that point, he would have felt that this is an opportunity left behind us, because this was a very, very, and you know more than us, a very average French side.
Absolutely. We felt how could France, with 2 weeks preparation, with a mismatch of coaches, beat, that's what I certainly felt, beat a team like Ireland who were so well coached. But as you said, there's a lot of areas that didn't perform as well as we would like. Even I didn't think Conor Murray's kicking was anywhere near as accurate or as precise as it has been. Our line-out delivery was poor. They were able to get to Conor Murray. We did get turned over at the breakdown more often than we normally do. We didn't score points every time we got into their 22, which normally we do. So for sure, Joe would be unbelievably critical of. He'll critic himself as well. He look at how they trained over the last 2 weeks. Did they get the plan right? Did they adapt the plan too much because of the weather? And he won't like the fact that the game was pretty much out of their control going into the last 10 minutes. He'll be very worried about that kick chase, from Rob Kearney's touch finder. Why we allowed Teddy Thomas down the line. So all those little areas that didn't work, we can be very comfortable. We can be very comfortable in the fact that they will analyse that game and they will fix those issues to make us better. But this time we have 4 points, which is a hell of a lot better than what we looked at we're going to get. With 3 or 4 minutes to go.
It's, as you say, Tommy, one of those moments that kind of tears up everything that went before it.
Yeah.
You kind of just throw away the notes and prepare on for Italy now, and you're in obviously an infinitely better position to kind of prepare for that Italy game. But you do it with, we have a win, but we also have a lot to improve on.
Yeah,
so
it's funny. I think we're going to be talking about Tom Brady in a moment, and what obviously for example, what he did in the Super Bowl last year, and with his team, driving his team, and that idea of in NFL of that the drive up the field where and it gets that momentum. And I wonder this week, after having done something like that, like Baron had mentioned to me before we came on air, that you don't game plan for a drop goal from a restart. It's just too
risky.
It maybe from a line out or a scrum or a set piece in the opposing half maybe, but like, what will the Irish team take out of that? Okay, they'll have the murderous review session tomorrow and they'll go through all everything, but now they're the team who've done an All Blacks on it, where they were the team that made the impossible happen, and the impact that would have. Like, I often wonder, we talk about Tom Brady, when he's conducting one of those drives, how much in the opposition's mind are like, oh my God, it's Tom Brady, and he's in the zone and he's doing what he does. And this is,
it's got to be a huge factor. You
wonder now how much the Ireland team would get from performing that incredible last 5 minutes of 41 phases.
We now have an aura.
Yeah.
When have Ireland ever had an aura in any sport?
Well, we're going to be a team that until we're dead, we're not dead. That team. It's
not a bad place to be. We will keep it on the rugby tip, because Conor O'Shea has done not one but 2 interviews. One of them is apparently an exclusive in the Mail on Sunday with Liam Hagney, but also a 2-pager with Paul Kimmage today as well. Tommy, you go to a lot of these press conferences in and around the build-up to games. You've obviously done a lot of pre-match stuff with different coaches and different players. Have you ever been afforded 6 hours with an international coach at their training setup in the week of a Six Nations game?
No, certainly not. Not 6 hours anyway.
It's incredible the amount of time. That's the immediate thing that struck me is one of the opening paragraphs here from Paul saying we spent about 6 hours together at Giulio Onesti Olympic Centre on Monday, and there were times when it felt like we were shooting that popular beer ad, Carlsberg don't do interviewing head coaches in the week of the Six Nations, but if they did ... It's a remarkable gift from O'Shea to give up that amount of time in the lead up to such a huge game for him.
Yeah, and I think Kimmage starts the article from that point of view, as in the wall of silence he's been greeted with when trying to get people on the record about the Grobbler issue and different things, and the general fact that I think the line is they're fine, but in days gone by, opening line of the article is, what happened to all our great rugby folk? They used to be the bravest, toughest, brightest people in sport. They're as bad as footballers now. I've almost given up trying to interview them. They're fine when you're tickling their tummies or plugging their hair gel or moisturisers, but confront them with a simple truth and they start squealing. Then their handlers jump in. No comment. That's it. Time's up. No more questions. And so he's already, Conor O'Shea already has Paul Kimmage on site by giving him the time and giving him the. But I think Conor O'Shea is coming at it from a different perspective. He just seems a lot more open, maybe it's the nature of the job he's in that I mean I'm not sure how, you know, it's international coaching, it's obviously a pressure environment, but you know that it's perhaps he's not got the glare of, you know, Gazzetta dello Sport are not, you know, don't have the fortunes of the Azzurri on the front page every day. It's maybe slightly different, and there isn't that pressure cooker thing. Certainly we know, working in the media, that Joe Schmidt has a very vice-like grip on, in terms of you know, the media side of it, and messages, and you know, even around injuries, and you know, etc., etc. And this is an article, this is coming from the perspective of the complete, you know, 180 degree opposite. Talks about everything from his life growing up and the game and his values. Also from a strong point of view, Conor O'Shea, he knows who he is. He's a very, very measured. I mean, Bernard, I imagine, would know the guy on a personal level better than I would. You know, he always comes across as one of the good guys. And you know, and he's not hiding anything, so he doesn't feel he has to hide anything in the week before a match.
It's a difficult thing to parlay into the world of coaching, being one of life's good guys, one of life's nice guys. But there is a steeliness about O'Shea. I mean, you don't play international rugby, you don't go off and coach your Harlequins, you don't go off and do what he's done with Italy so far without having that core, you know, to you, which is that you're not going to be broken by any of these situations.
No, and he's quite unique in terms of how he does his job. So he's pretty much, so Joe Schmidt is hands-on. He micromanages every aspect, and Eddie Jones is very similar. Warren Gatland is less so. He's more of a director of rugby. You know, make sure the environment is right, the game plan is right. Conor, I mean, I'm lucky enough. I played with Conor in Lansdowne. He's always been really helpful to me whenever I've needed some advice, or you know, needed to send an assistant coach to spend some time with him. He's unbelievably open and affable. It's just the way he is. But he told me that his most enjoyable part of the week was this, when he was in Harlequins, was the Monday morning. He'd order breakfast in, he'd get all the coaches in the room, they'd review the game, and they'd make the plan for the week. And after that, then he let people get on with it. He was big picture. He'd be watching training, but he'd never get involved technically, tactically. It was just if he'd felt the attitude wasn't right, the work rate wasn't right, and he's able to, I suppose, play a big part in the plan, and then step back and let other people actually put into place. And if you look at his previous experience, I mean, he headed up the national academies for the RFU. So with that job, he would have had to build relationships with the 12 Premiership clubs, which isn't easy, because the Premiership coaches' job is to win games today for their club to keep their job, whereas Conor's job was to make sure that those bright young talents spread out across England were getting the right amount of game time. So you don't survive in a job like that unless you're somebody who's able to build relationships and see the bigger picture. And then obviously after that, then he went to work for English Institute of Sport, where he was in charge of trying to prepare athletes for an Olympic, and that was incredible. I mean, he's someone that can just I suppose see something from the top down and then put together the structures. And I think that's why he's the right man for Italy. I think he's the right man for Italy because he'll actually influence the Italian game all the way down to underage, and he's brought in Steve Aboud, who's done the same thing for the RFU, which is important, but also culturally he gets the Italian culture. So if you look at the coaches who've preceded Conor O'Shea in Italy, they came from New Zealand, South Africa, and they saw it as the South African New Zealand model and tried to implement that with Italians. You need to understand that that Latin mentality is a little bit different. You don't get everything you want today, and if you know your end point is whatever 300 miles north, instead of going on a straight line, which you'd like to in Anglo-Saxon countries, probably there you've got to actually go right, left, maybe backwards sometimes, work a new plan to try and get there. And I think he will do that. I think he's the best possible coach Italy could have got, because he's able to influence people around him and not just the 15 players who play against Ireland.
It's a cultural thing for him, and it seems to be that was his MO with going into the Italy job, is that he wanted to change the attitude of the Italy players in regards to how they view themselves and how they put themselves forward from that point on, but also how others would look down, well, not look down upon them, but would look at them, and that they wouldn't just think that they're there to be the whipping boys, that he wants to progress them on more and to change the entire culture around Italian rugby, which is a hell of a job.
Yeah,
you might, if you're to set out to actually do that, per se in your job description, but it's a subtle piece by piece job for him, it seems.
Yeah, and I think absolutely. And he's done, if you look at the Italian, so the quickest way of Italy becoming stronger is to make sure that the two teams that feed into them are better, which is Zebra and Treviso. And if he obviously would have had a role in Michael Bradley getting the job in Zebra. And for the first 6 months of the season, Zebra and Treviso have been much more competitive, which is huge for them, because previously they've gone from, playing in their club environment, and we spoke about how Ireland now are going to be the team that people fear can pull a win out of the bag. That comes from the provinces, initially being successful and having that winning mentality and record of winning. The Italians were coming from losing every week with their professional side into an Italian camp, and he's trying to build their confidence over a week. So it's much more likely that they're going to come in with better self-belief and confidence if they've been used to beating Welsh, Irish and Scottish teams in the domestic league. So he's starting with that. Then he's looking at under-20s. Then he's looking at the academy structure throughout the country. And I think Conor O'Shea could be a CEO for a company. That's the type of man he is. Whereas not many head coaches, most of us are very focused on the minutiae of tactics, technique, training plan, and then we're all not suited to having that real strategic look at how you can actually develop a sport in a whole country is a very different matter.
There's an interesting point about his when he went into Harlequins, and this comes into values, because Kimmage obviously wants to steer him onto the discussion about drugs in rugby and other issues around values. And why was he approached to go into Harlequins after Bloodgate? So Bloodgate was obviously when they
blood capsule
to facilitate a substitution. It says there were miles better people than me, but they knew what they needed. Kimmage says they considered you a man of values, and they said they wanted a person that could drive the club in the direction they needed at the time. So that was that's where he's coming from. But it's interesting you speak about being a CEO. Like it could read like that kind of interview. He's clever. He doesn't give Kimmage much on.
I was thinking that there's 2 pages here, but ultimately there's little bits and pieces. It's not as if he's been tossing away pieces of information about himself or leaving open doors left, right and centre. Paul's made work for what he does get out of him.
He has that sort of...
It's a Kerryman attitude, as he points out there.
It's maybe that's where it comes from. Yeah, I thought it was the kind of... He's that's clearly highly intelligent but shrewd. CEO, kind of able to sort of sense which way this is going and come out of it, smelling of roses.
Yeah.
He has that kind of golden balls feel about him, Conor O'Shea, as well.
I found it interesting as well. Paul goes, "You're the youngest of 3 boys." Yeah, the black sheep. Why? Asked Paul. "I didn't do medicine. My eldest brother Dermot is geriatrician, and Donal is in endocrinology." It seems to me that I know he did commerce in UCD, and obviously he's no tick, but there seems to be an analytical, almost doctor-esque way of going about things. We mentioned it outside, just in terms of, like, a doctor doesn't go, right, you have a broken leg, we're going to do this, or you have a ruptured ligament, we're going to do this. He has to take it on a case-by-case, on a patient-by-patient basis, and it's a similar issue that he's gone into here with Italy. He's seen what's wrong with them, he's trying to work out the best prognosis for them and how they can end up being a better whole going forward.
Yeah, it's a very unique challenge. Most the day-to-day job in Harlequins, obviously he had to go in and fix their culture because it was broken, the club's reputation was damaged, and he did that by being the front of house, by having those values and be very transparent in those values, getting his players to buy into that and changing. He brought through a batch of youngsters like Danny Kerr, Chris Robshaw from their academy. He gave them their moment. And he won an Aviva Premiership, which, if you look back at Harlequins' history, they haven't had a huge amount of success. So I think he's very capable of, and he's brought through some coaching as well. So yeah, he's someone that, as you say, golden balls. He's very safe to the hands as a TV pundit. He's able to get. It's very hard when he was coaching Harlequins. He was working as a pundit on high profile games. Players he coached, I don't think he's ever put a foot wrong. I don't think he's ever said anything. A
lot of players are still wary of that, or ex-players are wary of that. And obviously, I'm not going to name names. We would have approached people before whereby you go, "Have you any interest in being a pundit?" And some of them will, flat out say. And I think Tommy Bowe was even one of these where he recently says he doesn't want to. It wasn't to us he said it, but he just said it generally. He doesn't want to get into punditry because he doesn't want to be that guy. He doesn't have it in him to be that guy.
To criticise his mates.
Yeah, whereas O'Shea never saw it as criticising his mates. But also, I don't think at any point could you ever point back to something when Conor O'Shea was on that panel with Brent Pope and Shaggy and George to a degree as well, where you go, God, Conor O'Shea was out of line. It was always like, if Conor O'Shea said something, more often than not you went, yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, he was able to give an interesting angle without
he wasn't lynching anybody.
No,
Yeah,
exactly. He's very intelligent. He's incredible.
Can I just ask Bernard, just in terms of what you're doing in the Dragons now, and you say you wouldn't be like O'Shea in that sort of, you know, helicopter view, chief executive style. You'd be more hands on. But are you trying to do a lot of similar things around the culture, around the region?
Yeah, I'm becoming way less hands on because the job.
Yeah, you were in here a few months ago, and you had your finger in every single pie with the Dragons.
So we're out I'm out every Monday night doing Q&As and present speeches to the local clubs because we effectively have to build affinity. Yeah. So within our region, there's been a lot of historic rivalry, which I think is a really good thing. People are passionate about their clubs, but we need to build an affinity for the team that we represent, or that I'm in charge of, which is the team that represents the region. So it's about getting out there and explaining the vision, explaining that we should be a resource for the clubs in our region rather than just take. So most professional teams, they look at their feeder clubs as just a resource that they can just go in and handpick their players, take them off them, and sell them tickets and sell them sponsorship, and deprive them of the revenue that that they want for themselves to make their club prosperous. So also in terms of recruitment, in terms of succession planning, in terms of how we talent ID our youngsters, how we develop those youngsters, because the Dragons are pretty much it was a blank page when I went in. If you went into Chris Boyd, the Hurricanes coach, going into Northampton, you go into Northampton, there's 20 years of systems and processes in place there. You literally just tinker with a couple of little things. You recruit a couple of players. You change the game plan, and away you go. You know, with the Dragons, unfortunately, there's 7 or 8 years of lack of investment, lack of planning. So it's a little bit like the Italy job in terms of that. Except probably I have to have a short term focus on this week. Whereas I think Conor, he's November. He has the Six Nations and he has June and the World Cup. So he's probably got a little bit more time in between the competitions to get involved. But it's very enjoyable.
It's doing it for you though. You're not kind of going, what am I doing here in this town hall in a on a Monday? I should be.
No, I actually enjoy it because I think I can see when we get the groundwork we're doing now isn't going to get people in the gate. The only way to get people in the gate is by building a winning team and getting some star players, developing some world class players, either from within our academy and from within those clubs, or importing a few. And I've done that with Richard Hibbard, and we signed Ross Moriarty. We might get George North. We want to bring in some marquee players, but the real growth's going to be building a team that win. We won 4 games last year. We've won 8 this year and drawn 1. So it's getting better. Nowhere near where we want it to be. But we're on the right track, and that's exciting. Seeing. Conor speaks about those small wins and how traditionally he would have went to watch Man United and speak to Alex Ferguson, whereas now in Australia he went to the Brisbane Lions, who are a struggling team. And that's what you got to do. You got to say, okay, we'd love to be able to replicate Man City, but that's not feasible. But what teams are overachieving, given the resources, and can we learn anything from them? So it's just a different mindset, and I'm really enjoying it.
So Gregor Townsend's pitching up with Pep Guardiola kind of didn't exactly work in his favour yesterday.
No, it's just it's always good to obviously work with the best, but Gregor has tapped into a huge amount of different people over the last 4 or 5 years, and that was obviously high profile. Yesterday's performance,
he's not going back to the Scottish Rugby Union and saying, I need 50 million for an out half, please.
What are those? I'm interested to see what kind of conversations you have to have with the WRU or with North himself about the potential signing of a George North, because he's made it known that he's going to be leaving Northampton.
Yeah, see, that's a really difficult one. So he effectively signed a national dual contract, an NDC, with the union back in October, and the protocol for that is that his region of origin, which is the Scarlets, have first call on him. So only can he become available to the other regions. So with that national dual contract, the union pays 60% and the club or the region pay 40%.
Right.
So they basically pay the majority of it. The issue potentially is that the Scarlets sold him when he was 21 to Northampton without his permission. So there's a bit of history there. At the moment, we're waiting to see if he refuses the Scarlets. Well, then we would love to be next in line. But so did the Ospreys, and the Blues actually were interested, but then they pulled out. So it's effectively between the Scarlets, the Ospreys, and the Blues. But he's very unique in that Richard Hibbard, Ross Moriarty, and the other 11 players I've signed was a case of me just going to them and doing a deal. Whereas this one here is the deal's already been done. He's come back to Wales, but the process is a little bit different. That he has to refuse the Scarlets before he becomes available. So he might never become available to us. But it'd be a brilliant coup for us to get someone of his quality.
Absolutely. The one surprising thing that jumped out from this O'Shea piece with Kimmage before we move to ads, what about coming home and taking the Ireland job? No, asked Paul. Never. Really, I've said it before. I've no interest. I love my country too much to do it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
I found that staggering. That not that he necessarily might go, do you know what? That's probably a conversation for another day. That's we'll wait until Joe's out of a job and discuss it then. He's putting his foot down vehemently, saying no. He just doesn't want the job because he cares too much for it to ever go sour. Which for me seems. It's not odd. Yeah, well, it is an odd way of looking about it when you've got a guy who's operating at the level that O'Shea is. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I was. I presumed. I always remember having this feeling about Colin O'Rourke and Meath as well, like that it was like the king in waiting, and it never really happened.
Yeah.
You always wonder about the reasons for that. And with him, it was just like this is the natural progression. And I think before Schmidt, maybe there was some. Link and talk about it, when he's ready. Not
he was
quite
still
now.
young, and I don't think he'd been embedded at Harlequins all that long.
Yeah, and then
but now
you
think natural progression would be
if Italy goes well, etc.
Got to manage your international experience. He's from Ireland,
and it's the case of is it the point he's making in the article is that he doesn't want. Yeah, he doesn't like if it goes pear shaped, and he's. I don't know if that's particularly what it is, or maybe he feels maybe the way he works, he likes to have these projects where he is, he is the chief executive role, if you like, and I don't know, maybe that doesn't work in the IRFU framework.
Yeah, I would say like Conor's is a sports fan. He's massively passionate, and potentially look at the other jobs apart from London Irish, where he played, and other jobs he's gone in as a little bit of an outsider, and was able to, I suppose, look at it from a cold point of view. And that's what if you're a surgeon, you look at from a cold point of view. But if you're related to the person you're operating on, if he's massively passionate about Irish rugby, which he is, maybe he feels because he doesn't want to make mistakes. Maybe he feels that his passion for that role might cloud his judgment and affect his ability. I would say the role that he would be best suited to would be the high performance role, which David Nucifora has at the moment, because that's a more strategic job where you can actually look at things from a little bit further away. When you're coaching a team for that 80 minutes, it's very hard to keep your heart rate down and not get involved.
Yeah. But the line is, it can only end badly, and which is, certainly in the case of the soccer team, and pretty much always the rugby team, no matter how successful you are, there's always the end where you're the front of the microphone with somebody asking you, are you going to resign, or are you going to be signed? And the golden balls, it won't help you there.
The last thing he wants to be doing is being pressed against a tunnel wall, being asked by the likes of Dave McIntyre whether he's going to consider his future or not.
That's probably after winning the Grand Slam.
Well, that's the thing. Dave will be like, that's not good enough. You should be winning every game to nil. We will take a quick break. We'll be back afterwards with talk of the Winter Olympics of all things. We'll also be looking at Tom Brady and Super Bowl 52. Keep it here.
Off the Ball on News Talk,
in association with the Air Sport app, allowing you to cast your favourite sporting action from your tablet or mobile phone straight to your TV.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Coming up this evening at the later time of 7, we continue the conversation about child safety online and hear from Webwise, the organisation working to teach the teachers how to deal with the issue. We'll hear from the Irish woman bringing pop-up beauty salons into pennies, and of course answer your tech questions.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
This evening at the later time of 7
on News Talk.
Buying something from Appliances Delivered is now even easier, thanks to finance from Flexify. That new washing machine, fridge freezer or dishwasher you had your eye on, you can now get them for a low monthly payment. Just go to appliancesdelivered.ie, get up to €15,000 approved in minutes, and next day delivery nationwide. Simple. Fees, terms and conditions apply. Subject to minimum purchase amount, credit assessment and approval. See appliancesdelivered.ie/flexify.
Introducing the freshly grilled chicken breast sandwich at Supermax. With 100% Irish chicken and less than 350 calories. Perfection.
It's time to see the world with the Etihad Airways business class offer. Warm. Play in the Indus Abu Dhabi summer from €1,999. Indulge. Discover culinary delights in Bangkok from €2,099. Amazed. Get front row seats to wildlife in Africa, Johannesburg from €2,235, return and all in. Offer ends 11th of February for travel until September 2018. Book now at Etihad.com. Conditions apply. Etihad Airways, from Abu Dhabi to the world.
Welcome to Greener Pastures, your 100-day green cleanse plan. In your starter pack, you'll find a detox juice, a weekly portion of pre-cut grass, and a green cleanse diary, where you'll record your daily intake of that cut grass. So get ready to live a cleaner, greener life. If you're feeling peckish, you are permitted half a slice of cucumber. You're welcome.
There is an easier way to greener pastures, like Opel's Green 100 Drive. Trade in any 2012 or older vehicle and we'll give you an EcoBoost of up to €4,000 on any petrol or diesel model from our Green 100 range, including the Opel Corsa, Astra, Insignia, Mokka X, Crossland X and the all-new Grandland X. Visit your Opel dealership and join our Green 100 Drive. Terms and conditions apply.
Visit Hospitality Expo RDS. 200 exhibitors, thousands of ideas. Everything for the hotel, restaurant and pub trade. Hospitality Expo, February 6th and 7th.
At Bruce Betting, we're celebrating 40 years as one of Ireland's leading bookmakers with the launch of our brand new website and iOS app. Packed with features and easy to use, the new Bruce Betting app includes ACCA insurance, cash out and live casino. Bruce Betting, giving you more. In store, online and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly.
You thought you'd need to shop around to get the best long-term savings on gas and electricity, but then you remembered you're with Electric Ireland and nearly 1 million other people who are getting the best savings on gas and electricity every year. So if you're not already with us, sign up online today. Search electricireland.ie. Because being with Electric Ireland is smart. Being with us and never switching again is smarter. Electric Ireland. That's smarter living.
Conditions apply. Direct debit and online billing. Credit terms for those not on an existing discount based on rates on the 11th of October 2017.
Off the ball.
In association with Air. Don't miss live and exclusive Premier League action this month on the Air Sport Pack.
This is News Talk.
Yeah, you're very welcome back. It is Richie here with you, along with the Dragons head coach Bernard Jackman and TV3's own Tommy Martin, looking at the Sunday papers. One of the best stories in and of itself that is in today's papers circles around the team that Ireland sent to compete in the bobsleigh in the 1992 Winter Olympics. Mark Gallagher has written about this in the Irish Mail on Sunday. It's one of a couple of Winter Olympics pieces, obviously with Pyeongchang on the horizon, that doesn't lean surprisingly enough towards doping or any of that kind of stuff. But looking at the involvement that Ireland has, albeit with a small team this time around, and a small team it was as well back in 1992, along with Pat McDonough, Terry McHugh, the late Malachy Sheridan, Gary Power and John Farrelly, talking to Jerry Mackin, who was part of that bobsleigh contingent in 1992. The story of how they got there is utterly remarkable. The Mackin and McDonough were involved in the Henley Regatta course in rowing in 1986. They were renowned international rowers and competed in the race. We actually won it, Mackin recalls, and at the end there was an envelope waiting for both of them from a London Irish businessman called Larry Tracy, wondering if they would be interested in representing Ireland in the bobsleigh. As you do.
So I'm seeing the movie. Colin Meaney plays the businessman. Colin Farrell is it's like one of those kind of stories, isn't it?
I was reading the whole piece. There's at least 4 or 5 moments in it where I was like, holy crap, him as well. Like when you get to the piece as well, saying that they had to go and basically qualify for a driving licence to compete in the bobsleigh. So they were in Innsbruck in Austria, the site of the 1976 Winter Olympics. Among those who were in the same class was Prince Albert of Monaco, who became a big supporter of the Irish team's efforts.
Of course he did.
Like Prince Albert of Monaco, just hanging around, trying to get his bobsleigh licence as well. It's just one of the most remarkable stories. And ultimately, I mean, they don't get to compete in the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary. They were recording solid times on the circuit, says Mark. They were competitive. Mackin goes on to say, we wanted to be the top B nation or one of the smaller nations. The Irish team did enough to qualify for the Winter Olympics in Calgary. The Irish tricolour was among the flags of all the competing nations, but Ireland didn't send any athletes. 10 days before the opening ceremony, the Olympic Council of Ireland sent a letter to the bobsleigh team saying they wouldn't be going to Calgary. Despite tracing the team going to the High Court to seek an injunction, no reason was ever given. They would have been on a par with the Jamaican bobsleigh team who competed in the 1988 Olympics and went on to inspire the movie, obviously Cool Runnings, but the Irish team didn't get to be there. Instead, they doubled their efforts. They sent 2 crews in 1992 and competed from there. One of these weird... how does a businessman go, I've seen you rowing, how would you like to do a bit of bobsleigh?
Yeah, there's definitely a film or a book in this. I don't know how he found them, and then because of obviously disappointment of the Olympic Council not sending to Calgary, instead of actually giving up, they I suppose they knuckled down, and they actually recruited more people. So they recruited Terry McHugh, obviously, who was the Irish javelin Malachy Sheridan, Gary Power, John Farley, a decathlete, a discus thrower, and yeah, they got 2 crews to go to Albertsville in 92, but unfortunately there's no footage of it because RT were in the middle of a strike, so we don't even have footage of what obviously is a pretty unique story where you've got 2 crews.
Surely you've got to go to the BBC or something, like that, or the OBS, and say, listen lads, is there any chance we can get footage of this? Like, I'm here now. If anybody's going to make the documentary about it, I'm putting the off the ball stamp on this.
I don't know if in the archives they're particularly, the BBC are particularly concerned about the Irish team in 92.
But it's remarkable because we saw as well that as we mentioned, there's a few different Olympic stories knocking around. There's the one of Pat McMillan, as written by Dennis Walsh in the Sunday Times, whereby he was part of the Leinster under-19 side that also contained Jack Conan and Tyke Furlong, and ends up as a different career path because rugby's not working out for him, going skiing.
There's the interesting thing about these stories is, you know, we spend most of our time working in sport talking about the elite level where there's, you know, there's glory and, you know, and money in the case of the professional sports, and you know, we look for motivations why people do things. There's an element of romance in these stories that come up because they're not going to make any money. In fact, it's going to cost money. They're going to need to be bankrolled. They're going to need sponsorship. But there's an element of there is that Cool Runnings thing of, let's just do this for the whirl.
Sure, why not?
For the, you know, the adventure of it, and it is kind of that, you know, that Olympian thing, that much tarnished ideal. You know, it's a bit of a, you know, you're about pitching up at the Winter Olympics with your bobsleigh and you're giving it a go, and there's, you know, it's a rare, I suppose, the nature of the Winter Olympics and, you know, events like this, they come up irregularly, so it kind of, it's a nice bit of a change from.
It's a nice distraction.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating, the stories behind the story. So, you know, we all look at Olympics and we see that, you know, the success and the people on the podiums, but it's the sacrifice and the journey. You know, because most people going to Olympics, they not realise that their PB isn't even going to get them into a final. But it's the 4 years around that, and you know, even there's an interview with Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp, yeah, his credit card was cut 3 times. You know, in his early days when he's striving to be a professional coach, and it's people who have the resilience and they break through that barrier to become elite. And some of them they never become elite, but they achieve their goal, which is, you know, to represent their country in a Winter Olympics, or, you know, on tour school, to try and be a pro golfer, be on the circuit. It's just fascinating the sacrifice and the belligerence some of them have. And you know, and there's no guarantee of success.
It always strikes me how these people end up starting one thing and ending up in the other. Whether it's Pat McMillan here turning towards skiing, whether it's the lads here who are involved in the javelin or involved in rowing, ending up in the bobsleigh in the Winter Olympics, and they end up competing at a decent level. They were saying that following the debacle of Eddie Deagle Edwards at the 1988 Olympics, the IOC had to ensure that any athletes who qualified were able to compete. And with the continued financial support of Tracy and some donations just thrown in here as well from the Pittsburgh Steelers owner and later US ambassador to Ireland, Dan Rooney, over a couple of years, the Irish team proved themselves with some decent finishes, and onwards they went to Albertville in 1992, competing against the likes of Herschel Walker, who was an NFL player, and he was on the American bobsleigh team. This is just ready-made, absolutely ready-made for
both these sports are dangerous. Bobsleigh, I mean, there's been people killed. You know, it's not like going playing darts or playing golf.
I don't know. I was watching Adrian Jackpot Lewis the other day, and he was getting a bit testy in the UK Open qualifiers.
And the interesting thing is they did find that you do get to a certain point where it is about the equipment. For example, you know, the Swiss team were always going to win because, you know, it's an industry there, and they'll always have the best. Bob. But just in terms, like, it comes up every year around Olympics, and you know, you interview a lot of athletes, and it always, pretty much the 2 years before every Olympics, certainly the summer ones, are all about sleaze and corruption, and you know, stadiums that run, you know, the cost of them overruns, and what's the point of all this, and the mess that leaves in countries behind. And yet every athlete you interview, no matter what the discipline, you have this shining, this, you know, determination, this real, the sense that the Olympic ideal is
still alive
there, you know. And you're watching Rio, which was probably the before you're the most jaded. You know, and I think you were. I
was there, yeah.
And you know, there was so much wrong with that Olympics in terms of the build-up.
Every day was a balance of it. Like literally, you're walking through like slum areas on the verge of this like gleaming Olympic park that's never going to be used. And we're seeing that now beyond the Olympics. But then you go and talk to like a Conor Bean who's competing in gymnastics,
and it shines out of them,
and funding himself by working on his dad's building site to go to the Olympics and to finish 20 odd amongst the field of 30.
It's something, and it's what you're saying about. They're clearly it's about being the best that they can be, which sounds like an awful cliche. But if your aim is to reach the Olympic, reach the Olympics itself and finish 32nd out of, if that's the best you can be, and you get there, that's the ideal. Or it's
but it's an amazing mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we all want to feel that we can. There's no barrier to how high we can go in our field. But for them there is, because there's I know we want to speak about Brady, who's obviously he's setting new records in terms of being able to compete at the highest level because he's 40 years of age. But realistically, for most of these sports, you have a 15-year window to get to a certain level, and then you're gonna have to change career. And they know that probably genetically or because of the country they're born in, there's not going to be the same resources, so their chance of actually being on that podium is incredibly slim. But they still sacrifice and put themselves through years of pain to get there. I think they're highly motivated people and really interesting, even though they very rarely come under, like Pat McMillan. He'd be in the press this week, and we'll probably never hear him again.
Is that something in terms of coaching that not every young player you're going to coach is going to be Brian O'Driscoll or Johnny Sexton. You got a guy, every young guy or girl is coming through might have to confront the fact that the best they can be is maybe have a pro career or whatever.
It's incredibly difficult. Like, so we're rebuilding our squad. We recruited 14, so 16 are going to have to leave. So last few weeks has been some really difficult conversations where I've had to sit down with players and tell them I don't believe there's a future for them in our club, and the harsh reality is the market at the moment is that it's getting squeezed a lot. So clubs in England, traditionally you could get let go by a professional team and you had a good chance of finding another club, but at the moment, because of the way the French market is, where there's a big priority to produce French players, England, they get their TV revenues based on their percentage of English qualified players. So for a Welsh kid who's been let go by the Dragons, or a Welsh man who's been let go by the Dragons, it's a harder marketplace. So realistically, there's a strong chance that their professional dreams are over. But it's elite sport, and you have to make those decisions. But it's about doing it in an honest way as possible, and giving them real feedback and trying to, if they can't find another club or another professional job, trying to help them with that transition into, because it's very difficult. You read about players who've been highly successful and they struggle when they retire because that void has gone in their life.
Their sense of themselves is
exactly, and they're players who probably have often have had unbelievable careers and probably achieved a huge amount financially and in terms of accolades, whereas what about the fellas who no one knows about, who decided at 16 I want to be a pro rugby player, and for whatever reason their opportunities to do that for a career are over, and maybe it's not down to injury, but it's about looking after them and making sure they have the tools to progress into the next stage of their life.
One man who very nearly gave up, selected 199th position in the 2000 NFL draft, and as he watched player after player being picked ahead of him, he left his parents' house in California and cried, thinking that he's never going to be picked up by an NFL side. He's now tonight on the verge of winning his 6th Super Bowl. Tom Brady, 40 years of age, the first 40-year-old quarterback to compete in the Super Bowl. Tommy, you staying up late for this one tonight?
You're going to give it a go?
I always get to the first quarter and then I'm like,
I get to the halftime show and to stage it all, and I feel myself drifting. There was the year, I think it was the year the Giants beat the Patriots, where I literally made it to the third quarter and I fell asleep and I woke up and they were going, that was the most amazing thing you will ever see in a Super Bowl history. I think it was the guy who caught the ball on his helmet or something like that. So it's a bit of a slog, all right, but I'm not an NFL fan, so I always tune in at the, as I call it, the semi-final stage, the conference finals. I find it remarkable. I listened to Ger and Owen on AM show every Monday morning now, and I'm remarkable how much those guys know about NFL. I'm kind of wondering, where are people finding the time to follow NFL on top of everything else? I mean, do they sleep?
That's the thing. I often wonder about, like, we both got kids. Jer does as well. So I'm kind of going, does Jer just like stay up at night?
Is there another Jer?
Does he clone himself?
Is there a twin? But this is great, and I wonder now, people who follow NFL closely and mightn't be Patriots fans, might not be as sort of warm towards Tom Brady, because obviously I'm aware of Deflategate and all that stuff, and and I guess if you're a fan of a rival club, you probably hate them anyway. But Eamon Sweeney's piece, Miracle Man Still Surpasses Them All, is about that thing that we're talking about, which is the resilience to cope with the fact that he was confronted with the fact that he was looking at not making it way back when he
199th in the draft. That's incredible.
It's just extraordinary what he's become since then, and is still doing it. The diet and the plyometrics and Pilates and everything. And I mean, he physically looks different now. I mean, he's some advert for veganism. Yeah. Anyway, and it's this just incredible self-actualization. If that's, I don't know if that's the sort of buzzword phrase of you created yourself. And then what we were talking about earlier about the aura that Ireland might have and that Johnny Sexton might have when he's driving Ireland in a situation like that. I mean, he's the absolute defining person in sport for doing that.
You can see that with the conference final with the Jaguars. There was a point where they went, oh Christ, we're 8 points up here, but he's got the ball in his hands.
Here he is, yeah.
Injured or not, this guy's he's gonna do so. It's like that bit in The Simpsons where Homer's looking out at the Japanese gangs out in the lawn. It's like, look at the little guy, Marge. He hasn't done anything yet, but when he does, it's going to be good. And it's a similar thing with Brady. And like, even if he hasn't done anything up until the third quarter, as soon as he gets the ball in his hands and there's something at stake, something is going to happen. And it's amazing to have one of those players at your disposal.
Yeah, what Americans call a clutch player, and he's trying to become the first player to win 6 Super Bowls, and he's won the last 3, each of them being won by 3 points. So in the moment, and they say, on the sideline, he used to be emotional and tetchy. Now he just is sitting there calmly taking in what's needed.
He's seen it all.
And then he goes out there and puts it into place. And he's actually not very well liked. Him and Belichick aren't liked by the American public, except for the fact that there's an aura about them for being unbelievably successful.
The Deflategate thing plays into it as well, but when you become a dynasty, when you become that coach and player partnership, or a team that's been there for years and years and years, Manchester United had it. It's like, go away. Just please, just go. Let someone else have a go. When you see the Patriots still there, you got a 40-year-old who's still throwing touchdown passes.
I think it's interesting the
best figures ever.
Yeah, the way Eamon Sweeney approaches, and he's clearly, like myself, just can't help but admire the guy, despite as you say, the things that aren't the controversies. He says neither he nor Belichick are lovable figures, and neither will command much support from neutrals. Controversies over the illegal videoing of other teams' signals and the deflation of match balls suggest an organisation not unduly troubled by ethical scruple. Yet there is something enormously compelling about Brady, a man who should be too old, driving a team which should not be strong enough to win games they should have lost. A man blessed with the physical beauty of an old-style Hollywood matinee idol, the ferocious desire of a ghetto street fighter, and a magician's ability to bend games his way by force of will. That all adds up to an incredibly... you got beauty marred with incredible steel. Like you talk about a movie, that's...
I could be talking with Tommy Martin.
Well, I don't know about force of will. That's all I can do to sit straight here.
There's loads and loads about the Super Bowl, not only in the studio today but in all the papers. I think we'll just about wrap it up there, because if we do, we're into Klopp territory, and then that's another 2 pages in the Mail. That's really worth reading as well. The piece that Ollie Holt today with the Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp, of course. Liverpool and Spurs is live at Nathan and Kevin a little bit later on, but we will get team news from the first game of the day today. Crystal Palace against Newcastle. Mark Scott is in situ at Selhurst Park. Afternoon, Mark.
Afternoon, Richie. Yes, team news for Palace, just the one change. Owen Cabaye, the former Newcastle man, injured. Top scorer Bakary Sakho makes way. The new signing, Alexander Sørloth, is on the Palace bench this afternoon. As for Newcastle, Shelvey, Ritchie and Gale